Well, hello and welcome to the LLG vlog. You're with me, Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor, and as usual, Helen Bennett, LLG's Executive Director of Policy and Governance. Great to see you once again, Helen. We've made it.
We have made it following the Zoom outage. So we're a little bit delayed, but we've made it.
Well, right. Let's get to it. Our topic today concerns the Green Belt, or more accurately, the numerous green belts that surround our towns and cities to prevent what is known as urban sprawl. Now, these areas are in the news all of the time now, and indeed, the Green Belt was the subject of a full-length panorama investigation on BBC One the other evening.
Yeah.
And court cases now regularly involve local authorities in a defender role.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, Dennis, but did you watch it?
I did. It was very
Yeah.
interesting, and it very much reflects what we have to say today about the role of local authorities and the many challenges that are coming before the courts, where local people feel that there is some risk that they will lose the benefit and protections that green belts can afford, and they feel that green areas in their localities are now under pressure for a number of
Mm,
reasons.
mm. Well, I don't think any other area of planning control has been more controversial in recent months, with many judicial reviews coming before the courts, of course, to challenge development proposals that affect the greenbelt areas. And up until now, they've enjoyed significant protections under planning law and
Mm.
planning law and policy. Many of these cases are indeed being brought by local authorities themselves, aren't they, Dennis?
Yes, that seems to be the case. There's a clear trend, and of course, uh, all people are pointing at the Labour government's drive for economic growth, including this ambition that we've mentioned many times that they have to build 1.5 million new homes. And this has given rise to heavy criticism from environmental and nature groups, as well as climate change groups.
Yeah, but I mean, what's driving the latest controversies concerning the use of greenbelt development? Is it policy? Is it pressure from developers, or both? And are those controversies indeed entirely new? Because there's forever been issues around greenbelt.
Yes, yes, they've always been around. But at the end of the day, we've got to ask ourselves this question: what are the facts? Now, as the government has just published the latest statistics on Greenbelt, we can ask a number of questions. What do these statistics show? And are we actually losing Greenbelt at pace, as has been suggested? And we'll ask today, what are commentators saying about all of this? And indeed, what sort of court cases are coming before the courts for determination? So we need to take a look at all of these things. But first, let's look at those recently published statistics. Well, what do they show? For the year to the 31st of March 2025, the main points are these. The extent of land which is designated as green belt in England as at the 31st of March this year was estimated at 1,633,220 hectares, and this represents about 12.5% of the land area of England.
Hmm. I wish I could visualize a hectare. I do struggle with that.
Yes,
I won't be the only person to struggle with that. So,
yeah, well, between you and me, I'm not entirely sure what a hectare is, but I have just a rough idea.
well, when we do know there was a decrease of 660 hectares in the area of land designated as green belt between the 31st of March 24 and 31st of March 25. Now, this is a decrease. If we're going to look at it from a statistical point of view, it's about 0.04% compared to the green belt as at March 24. And this decrease has the equivalent area of 0.01% of England. So I'm not sure how worrying that is when you look at it in statistics.
Indeed. And in 2024-25, six local authorities adopted local plans involving changes to the green belt, with the result being a net decrease of 650 hectares in the overall area of land designated as green belt compared to the 31st of March 2024.
Well, in addition, updates to the local authority district, the mean high watermark boundaries resulted in a net decrease of 10 hectares in the area of land designated as greenbelt. But of course, by the way, not all greenbelt is how people think it is, do they?
Well, this is interesting.
Mm.
Indeed.
So there's no significant movement so far, but it's early days, and I'm sure, as we're going to discuss people take opposing views. But the question remains, is Greenbelt under threat, and what sort of sites are being released for development?
Indeed. And just before I come on to that, Helen, I think the debate really isn't just about quantity, the figures that we've just mentioned. The
Mm,
debate is centering on the quality of the land in question that may be released. The quality of the sites that are being released from the Green Belt is very important. It's not just the statistical data that matters. And because of the very strict process for allowing their release, they are not the picturesque views that the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England attached to their press releases. Now, far more typical is the example of Bolton in the northwest, one of 11 councils to release land from the Green Belt in the last year. And the site that they chose to allow to be developed had previously been subject to open cast coal mining and
mm,
included a tip. Now, we don't think of Greenland designations including areas like this, and it was, if anything, an eyesore. Yet it is next to the motorway network and is ideally located to help meet Bolton's need for employment land. But many might argue that seems a very sensible use of our finite land resources. So it's not the idyllic
yeah,
areas that are sometimes depicted that are being released. Now, the other big question is, well, what are commentators saying about this? Well, Fiona Reynolds, Dame Fiona Reynolds, is Vice President of the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England, and she said that the Green Belt is frequently in the news at present, which is certainly true, with voices for and against its release for development raging on. Now, this is not new, and I think she's right to say this. Indeed, she says the urban edge has always been a contested space, and it should not surprise us that today it's more controversial than ever. And on
mm.
that basis, Helen, I get the impression from that really nothing is changing at this present time.
It doesn't seem to be. I mean, Dieter Helm, professor at Oxford University, professor of economic policy, I was reading their comments, which broadly sort of outline that as the Labour government challenges the Green Belt in its campaign to build lots of new houses, the very concept has come under attack. And they say that parts of the Green Belt, such as untidy scrubland or old petrol stations, and that goes back to what we were saying about Greenbelt not being the same in all circumstances, are described, they went on as ripe for reclassification as grey. This goes back to the brown, grey. The green
Hmm.
bit is lost in the noise. There seems to be collective amnesia, Professor Helm said, about why the green belt was created and little consideration as to what it could become. Rather, it is now seen as an obstacle to growth, uh, strongly worded, the professor said, defended by NIMBYs, not as a great opportunity we have inherited. So that's an interesting view.
Hmm.
Whilst somebody called Kim Wilkie, who's a strategic and conceptual landscape consultant, as a title, has said that climate change places extra pressure on the management of open space, which I agree with entirely,
Yeah.
within and beyond the city.
Indeed. There's a range of opinions, and
Mm.
let's perhaps take an opinion from the legal sector. Christopher Boyle, who specializes in town and country planning at Landmark Chambers, really follows the line that we have in this discussion today. He reckons there's been an overreaction to the issue of whether Greenbelt is coming under severe pressure. And he takes the view, as in fact we do, I think, not a lot has really changed, certainly not yet. First, he says no one in power is suggesting the wholesale removal of green belt as a planning designation. Indeed, no one is doubting its usefulness. Indeed, vital importance as a tool to direct development, to protect countryside and prevent the, here's a word, agglomeration of once separate settlements into undifferentiated urban sprawl. In short, the green belt as a concept and a designation is here to stay.
That's a new word for me,
It
agglomeration.
is.
I rather
We
like it.
we use the term rarely here in the northeast of England, but there may be parts of Britain where our listeners use it over lunch and so forth. But anyway, back to the topic. What's next?
Well, I think let's take a look at the courts. I think what are the cases coming before the courts? Well, Barnet Council indeed is one of the latest councils to find itself at the centre of Greenbelt controversy. Ugh. So Barnet Council,
Agglomeration of problems
I
today with
know,
words.
I could say amelioration, but so Barnet Council has launched a legal challenge of a planning inspector's decision to approve an Irish travellers site on Greenbelt land. Now, the London Borough applied to the High Court in July of this year, and they sought to challenge the inspector's decision, which gave the green light for pitches. And this is on a 0.8 hectare plot to accommodate two Irish travelling families. And the planning application, which of course asked for a material change of use for the undeveloped parcel of land, but that was submitted back in 2023.
Mm. Now, here's another one. Walsall Council failed in a High Court action in which it tried to overturn a planning inspector's decision that a battery energy storage facility could be built on its green belt. And His Honour Judge Jarman, KC, dismissed all four grounds that were argued, one of which concerned alleged defects in an alternative sites analysis, and the other three grounds related to noise issues.
Mm. But I think the leading case from this year on green belts is the Mole Valley case. Judge Chowdhury handed down his judgment. This is Mole Valley DC and HCLG. It's a challenge to an inspector's decision to grant planning permission for Gypsy and Traveller pitches in, is it Newdigate? Is that how you say it?
Newdigate, yes.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge was brought on three grounds, but the main one being that where development is appropriate development in the green belt, they argued it can still give rise to harm to the green belt. Now, the council failed on all its grounds to overturn the decision. And I have to say, there's too much in the case to go into it in detail today. But we've got there's a reference available in an earlier version of the bulletin. But the case nonetheless contains significant analysis of the issues where national planning policy framework policies on green belt are being applied.
Mm.
Now, another question that we might ask is, what else has the government been doing on all of this? Well, the government has announced detailed guidance on its revised approach to the green belt in England, as set out in the new National Planning Policy Framework, which was issued in December of last year. Now, this guidance includes what is meant by the term grey belt and how it should be identified, how and why green belts should be reviewed, and guidance on how major housing development on land in the green belt should contribute to accessible green space and other benefits, the so-called golden rules. And again, this is something we've looked at in the bulletin previously. Now, at the same time, it has provided funding to 133 local authorities to undertake new greenbelt reviews. No sense there then in which the government is valuing in less the concept of the green belt, I don't think. Now, the government has also announced further guidance to ensure planning policies and decisions give substantial weight to the value of using suitable brownfield land within settlements for homes and other identified needs.
Mm.
So I think you'll agree, and I hope our viewers can see that it seems as though nothing really is being put under threat, I would say, at this stage. And I think local authorities are now cast in the role, Helen, of greenbelt defenders. We see them in these cases that we've mentioned here. They're put in the position of challenging planning inspectors' reports through judicial review in order to protect greenbelt designation.
Mm. And it's very politically charged as well, isn't
Oh,
it?
yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge politics around planning. So I think nature and environmental groups are prominent in resisting the consequences of the government's approach for the dash for growth. I think you could say that. And equally, the government is determined to amend procedural rules to limit opportunities for campaigners to challenge planning decisions.
Well, indeed. And again, back to our bulletins in the recent weeks, I have already included a mention that 10 Downing Street is looking at taking Britain out of the what's known as the Aarhus Convention, thereby making campaigners potentially liable to substantial court costs. This convention, in effect, puts a cap on the
Yes.
maximum costs that can be awarded against a campaigning group. Now, if that's removed, there's going to be much less of an appetite for these groups to challenge decisions that are being taken on matters such as this.
Well, that's right, because the consequences, can't say the word, consequences could be pretty dire for them. So they are,
Yes.
going to take a view. But as we have just seen, ministers are pressing for more flexibility from the planning inspectorate in their role in reviewing local plans through plan examinations.
Yeah. But I think we can conclude on the basis of what we've seen today that Greenbelt is here to stay as a concept.
Mm.
Focus is likely to be on the grey belt that we've discussed, that is to say, disused and redundant buildings and similar sites, sites of low quality value rather than of particular interest to the quality of the green belt itself.
Mhm.
But many of our members will be involved in the litigation that I'm sure will arise in future cases where challenges are being made to planning decisions made by planning inspectors in favour of developers.
Mm.
But as they say in France, plus ça change. And I think that might be a fairly cultural note on which to end.
Very much so, but we'll definitely look to do something around the issue of greenbelt and
Yes.
plans in our national lead sessions for the
Yeah.
planning lawyers as well.
Bound to be more cases on this.
100%.